There's been many documentaries on YouTube that gave you some of the things Richard Pina did while he roamed the streets of New Orleans and while he is serving time in prison. Most of those vloggers haven't even came close to characteristics of the real Richard Pina, aka Scardy, aka the Ghost. Although all those docu-series tried their best to capture the life and meaning of Louisiana's biggest drug overlord, we at Inside Source says, nah! Y'all don't even have a clue as to who Richard Pina truly is or his story. But we commend you all for at least attempting to delve into the life of a real boss of bosses. But we know it isn't your fault that most of what you document isn't close to actual facts. We understand that the lack of communication with the world from Pena has led most to fill in the gaps of his reign of power. Even today, we won't get into all the facts about this kingpin. We will only jump into a small section of what he was doing in our city. Today, we are going to talk about what really happened at the New Orleans Superdome during the infamous Tupac concert that almost got a big dog of the West Coast, CEO of Death Row Records, Mr. Suge Knight, along with his cohort Tupac Shakur, buried in the woods of one of our many fields out in Michoud or Little Woods. So let's start with the beginning. By now we all know who Richard Pina is and what he did around the street of New Orleans. But he was also only a young man of 33 years old when he was arrested, which would make him in his mid to late 20s when he dominated the every aspect of the streets of New Orleans. If you knew a hustler during this era of time, you best believe his work was coming from Pina. If not directly, then indirectly. You may have scored from somebody, who scored from somebody, who scored from somebody, who worked with the kingpin. And if you just happened to come across a connect outside of his network, then you had better to keep that secret under your hat, because if he found out, you didn't want to get a visit from one of his then teenage gold teeth wearing henchmen who always followed orders. On January 6, 1996, there was concert in New Orleans Superdome, which was supposed to be the entire Death Row roster, including the fresh out of jail Tupac Shakur. This concert was a surprise to everyone in the city. No one knew who had enough money to spend to bring such a venture together. Regardless of what many people may say, but if you wasn't deep connected in the streets, you hadn't even heard of Richard Pina at this time. Most of New Orleans didn't wake up about him until he was arrested. But in truth, Pina had been orchestrating different things around the city for years. Legal ventures and illegal ones. Mostly illegal. Hardhead Records was owned by Richard Pina, along with Roderick Smith. Fiend of No Limit, Bust Down, DJ Lil Daddy of the Ninja Crew, Devious D and the Ghetto Twins were all signed to Pina's recording label, Sheska Records. Do you remember MC Thick? Richard Pina was the manager behind that huge record. Pena has been in your face the entire time. Low-key, stamping himself into the fabric of the city, and regardless of what you may have heard, he is a proud product of the West Bank, from Avondale to Harvey and Marrero. But we all know the ties he had with downtown and uptown, especially the Calio projects. One of Pina's many ventures was putting together concerts, his first being in 1994 when he brought Craig Mack, Biggie Smalls, and Puff Daddy to New Orleans to perform at the Loa State Theater during Bad Boy Records' early years, which was a big concert during the time. He also put together some shows during the BRE convention with Russell Simmons in 1995, and the one that was publicized by the federal media after his arrest was the 1996 concert, which was supposed to be a tribute concert to the late Eazy-E, who had passed away due to AIDS complications. This concert was to be the entire Death Row roster, including the fresh out of jail Tupac Shakur. The concert was plagued with bad omens from the start. The New Orleans Superdome really didn't want to host the venue, saying that it would draw the wrong type of crowd at time. So they tripled their fees for the venue and made All Together Entertainment, Pina's production company, get the highest insurance that was available. They didn't think Pina could come up with the money to proceed with the concert as planned, but the amount was then paid in full the same day the request was put in. What the Superdome official and bigwigs didn't know was that Pina was New Orleans' drug lord, and he alone wasn't solely behind the concert. He had all his top hustlers pitch in a certain amount of money to fund the venture. It was his attempt to legitimize all the hustlers and gangsters that were a part of his team. So not only was the bag big, it was surrounded with some of the biggest players from New Orleans who had a lot riding on the success of the venture. But again, this concert wasn't running smooth as planned. Suge Knight, in typical form, changed the contract of the concert only minutes before it begun. He had informed Pena that Dr. Dre and Snoop would not be performing. The original deal was that it was the entire Death Row roster to perform. That news had pissed the drug kingpin off. He felt Suge Knight was trying to pull a fast one. I mean, Pena and his homies had paid $250,000 just for the Death Row artist alone, and was promising another $250,000 for another concert in Atlanta, Georgia the following weekend if all went well. So the change in contract was the first disrespect Pena noticed, but as a businessman he knew sometimes things could change easily without notice. Behind the scenes, Dr. Dre was actually leaving Death Row and Snoop Dogg was on trial for murder at the time. Finally, the lights went out in the Superdome, and music started playing with rappers on stage. It was the intro openers. One of Pena's rap groups called the A-Team had taken stage. No one knew the songs that were rapping, but the show must go on. Before the concert even begun, the Superdome decided to only open a small portion of the dome to the concert. Because it was really poor ticket sales, you would think the venue would be jam-packed from wall to wall, but it wasn't. Each ticket was sold for $75 each, which was considered a lot during that time. You had to be a real D-boy hustler to attend such an event, and it was jammed with just that, mostly street figures and players. But again, the show must go on. You're trying to keep the crowd hyped. But during their act, Pena gets a phone call. Complaints from all the hustlers and street figures who had put in on the concert with Pena were downstairs at the entrance of the concert. Their admittance passes were being rejected by security. The Superdome security team wouldn't let them in. Come to find out, Suge Knight had changed all the free passes, ignoring the ones Pena had issued to all his team. That had been the final straw. The disrespect was real. There was no other way for him to look at it. And if you know Pena, you don't want to test his patience. No one does. But Suge Knight didn't have a clue as to who Pena was. To him, he was just a New Orleans businessman he could push over. But he would soon find out. Pena walked down to security and had all his people let in. Then he called his crew who were already in the concert to meet him by the suites. But as luck would have it, his main people were in the concert in another stare down. This was the Calio and St. Bernard beef. The two crews had bumped heads in the concert and it looked as if things were getting heated.
In '96, the boys pull up on us in the Tupac concert. Yup, that was the Death Row concert. We met Tupac that night. Rest in peace, Tupac. Yeah, all facts. So we in there. Matter of fact, me and about 5 of my little partners and the rest of the homies, we all going in there. But some kind of way we got separated. I don't know how the fuck we got separated like that. So, but when we got separated, the Bernard, them niggas dressed in all black. They even got babies in Pamper with black Pampers on. You heard me? I'm talking about the whole fucking St. Bernard. So they big dog, you heard me? I don't even know the dude, man. We got one on or whatever, you dig? You like, what's up, Calio? So boy, it's 3 of us at this time. But we got the fucking scalpers on us, you heard me? We know we can't jug every last one of these bitches. So we got to retreat on some shit, you heard me? We smart niggas, we ain't stupid. So them niggas like, what's up, Calio? What's happening? Yeah, what's happening? So nigga like, it's good. But at the same time, we from back of town. You got front of town part of the project too. So Slam them standing right there. We wind up walking straight to Slam them, not even knowing they was even in a concert. But when we walked to Slam them, I guess they knew that was Calio too, you heard me? So they ain't made no move. Yeah, true story, man. That was some crazy shit, man, with that St. Bernard. But you know, this ain't about to glorify. This ain't how to open no old wound. This ain't about to hurt nobody's feelings. This just telling the old stories of how we came up in the breeding ground or that killing shit and that gangster shit. You know, that shit was just front door for a nigga. I'm out, man. Y'all tap into my IG, Virgo Shelley, my YouTube channel, Inside Source. Peace.
The Calio P was outnumbered 3-1. The St. Bernard had brought out all their manpower. There were even women in their crew looking like they were ready to join in on the drama. The Calio had thin. A few of them went to meet Pena, while others stayed behind, and it didn't help that half of their crew were in jail fighting various charges. Before Pena could reach Suge Knight's suite, he saw him and his entourage walking down a hall on their way to find him. The first words out, Suge's mouth was, "Hey guy, we ain't performing tonight." Tupac ain't feeling this small crowd. Suge words didn't even get a chance to sink in before one of Pena's right-hand mans blurted out, "If y'all don't get on that stage, y'all better start rapping right here in this fucking hallway." In my honest opinion, I think this was the moment Suge Knight realized he wasn't dealing with an everyday businessman. Tupac, who is usually the loudmouth and quick to engage with any confrontation, hadn't said a word the entire time Suge and Pena started engaging with words. But it took a very observant Daz Dillinger to notice that Pena's crew had started surrounding Suge and his entourage. They were clearly outnumbered. Daz whispered something to Suge and it seemed to calm him down. Pena asked, "So what's up? Y'all getting on stage, is this gonna go different?" Suge replied, "Yeah, we gon' do the show, but we ain't doing Atlanta show. We heading back to the West Coast." He said this while walking off from Pena and his crew. Pena had a few of his people follow Death Row Camp to the stage to make sure that they got on stage. The concert went off without another hitch from the Death Row Camp. Tupac took the stage last after the dog pound and turned it up. But as I said earlier, the concert was plagued from the jump start, and it didn't stop after Death Row performed. After the concert was over, Pena and his crew were sitting in the suites in the Superdome waiting on his accountant to come tell them how much money the concert had made and what their split of the proceeds would be. The accountant and overseer of all of Pena's legal ventures had called from the Superdome executive office and informed Pena that there was a problem. The IRS was in the office and was asking to see him. In fact, they were demanding the accountant to bring him up to Pena's suite so they could have a talk with him. Once Pena heard this, he informed all his crew what was going on. Every single one of them were street hustlers, gangsters, and every form of street life. This was some of them first time trying to clean up their street money to try some legitimate ventures. But the streets in them wasn't going to take no chances. Every last one of them ran out of the suites and headed to their cars and ran back to the streets, leaving whatever money was made behind, including Pena. He was one of the first ones out the door. He left the accountant with the IRS to figure out whatever there was to figure out. So there was never any money made from the famous New Orleans Tupac concert because the IRS had stepped in and seized all the money proceeds that way made. And the accountant was one of the government witnesses against Pena when he went to jail.